Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Celia Kang, and I'm an engineering manager at Databricks. Jay Bankaria, our senior director of data partnerships, and Itai Weiss, our lead data partner SA, are in the front row, but they're here with me to share Databricks' approach to sharing in the Lakehouse. Before we get started, a quick pit stop to our product safe harbor statement. In this presentation, we'll be going over some general product direction, which is for informational purposes only. Some of the features we discuss are forward-looking, subject to change, and may not be delivered as planned or at all. Okay, with that being said, our mission for sharing in the Lakehouse is to enable organizations to safely share and collaborate on data. We want to bring a next-generation data collaboration experience that is secure, that doesn't require data replication or vendor lock-in, where discovery and access to data products are simple, and doing these in a way that is privacy first. In this talk, we'll cover 3 initiatives underway to support our mission. The problem is that data sharing in today's world isn't as easy as it seems, and many organizations struggle with it. There is a handful of challenges. It's hard to maintain and too restrictive. There isn't an easy way to discover and access different data products, and there isn't a good way to share sensitive data. I'll focus on these first 2 traditional sharing challenges, namely that existing sharing solutions in the industry are hard to maintain and too restrictive. So some companies are still exchanging data through outdated methods like FTP and SSH, which worked in the past but are becoming problematic as data and technology evolve. With this approach, because data is being replicated from the provider to the consumer, there are many points of failure and complexities. It's difficult to maintain and scale because the provider has to set up a direct FTP or SSH connection with each of the consumers, which can be a unique and manual setup for each. And as the data grows, sending over full copies could take days, and there isn't a standard way for consumers to read just the new or incremental changes that have occurred since the last batch they received. And as with any replication solution, over time, the data could easily become out of sync. Some of the more modern sharing solutions are often too restrictive. Vendor solutions require that both the provider and the consumer be locked into their platform and only support exchanging data through proprietary data formats. So if a data provider is on a vendor solution and wants to share data with a consumer who's not on any vendor platform or a consumer who's on a different vendor platform, then this vendor solution simply doesn't work. And these restrictions introduced by vendor lock-in can make data sharing expensive or even impossible. And this often results in a lot of unrealized business value for both parties. To address these challenges, we built Delta Sharing as the first open protocol for secure data sharing, which enables organizations to share data for any use case using any tool and on any cloud. Providers can share their live existing data from their data lake without needing to replicate it to the consumer's environment. Our APIs allow providers an easy and centralized way to manage access permissions to their consumers, regardless of their platform. And our connector API and support for several open clients already allow consumers to read the data that's shared with them through their compute or cloud of choice without needing to purchase and be locked into any vendor solutions. Delta Sharing supports Parquet, which is an open data format. So any client that can read Parquet can work with Delta Sharing. Some of the connectors that already are available with Delta Sharing are Spark and Pandas. And we added support for Power BI, Node.js, Elixir, and Java this year. We're continuing to add even more connectors like R, Go, and Tableau coming soon. So how does Delta Sharing work? There are two parties involved, the data provider and the consumer. The provider can set up a Delta Sharing server in front of their existing data lake, which can be on AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. And they can set up sharing rules on the server, which specify which consumers have access to which data sets. And for each consumer, the sharing server generates an activation link, which the provider can send to the consumer and via email or chat. And the consumer can visit this activation link to download a file that contains their token credentials. And the consumer can use these credentials to configure any one of the Delta Sharing connectors to be able to read the data seamlessly via the Delta Sharing protocol. Under the hood, when the sharing server receives a request from a client to read a shared table, it checks the access permissions on the credentials. And if this check succeeds, it generates and returns these pre-signed short-lived URLs to the client, which can then directly fetch the data from S3, GCS, or ADLS. We've open sourced both the Delta sharing server and a variety of clients, but we've also implemented our own version of Delta sharing on Databricks, which is tightly integrated with the Unity catalog. A data provider using Delta sharing on Databricks gets some added benefits by being on our platform. So firstly, they get a unified data governance experience for managing access permissions and data both within the organization using Unity catalog and outside the organization using Delta sharing. A provider on Databricks can also choose to share just a subset or specific partitions of a table with their consumers, and they can configure IP access or cloud region restrictions per recipient for additional security. And lastly, in addition to a REST API that we already include with the open source Delta sharing server, providers on Databricks have access to a nice SQL API and a UI where they can easily manage their consumers, their data shares, and their permissions. So when a data provider and a data consumer are both using Databricks, the sharing connection can be automatically and securely established by our platform without requiring any token exchange or management. And a consumer using Delta sharing on our Databricks platform gets some added benefits as well. They get a unified data governance experience where they can import the data that's shared with them as a catalog on Unity catalog, and then they can work with the data as they normally would on Databricks by running queries or jobs against it, by creating notebooks, dashboards, visualizations, and so on. Consumers on Databricks also get access to a nice SQL API and a user interface where they can view all of their data providers and all of the data assets that have been shared with them. And that includes views that are shared with them through the dynamic filtering capabilities that we'll provide on our platform. So with this Databricks to Databricks sharing, the provider and the consumer don't need to be on the same cloud platform. So one can be on AWS while the other is on Azure, and this makes Delta sharing on Databricks truly cross-cloud. So with that, let's jump into a demo of Delta sharing on Databricks. In this fictional scenario, there's an online retailer called Rolo's Gift Shop, and they are using Databricks on AWS, and they want to share their online sales transaction data with two of their suppliers. One of their suppliers is Wedding Trinkets Company, who is using Databricks but is on Azure. And the other supplier is Holiday Goods Company, who's not on Databricks or any cloud platform. This is the data provider Rolo Gift Shop's Databricks workspace on AWS, and I'm here in the Data Explorer UI. Rolo's Gift Shop wants to share the consumer data and country data tables with their suppliers. This consumer data table stores the transactions of every sale in their online shop, and the country data table stores which countries the online shop has made sales in. Okay, so let's share this retail data with our suppliers. In the new Delta sharing section in the Shared by Me page, as a provider, I can manage my shares and recipients. Let's create recipients, which will represent the Wedding Trinket Company and Holiday Goods Company. I know that this company uses Databricks, so I'll need to ask them for their unique sharing identifier in order to start sharing data with them. I have a point of contact from Wedding Trinkets Company named Rachel, so I sent her an email asking for her unique identifier, and she sends me this string. And let's put a comment in here too so that others on my team know whom from this company they can contact if needed. On the details page for this recipient, I can see that the authentication type is Databricks because this is a Databricks to Databricks sharing connection. So the sharing connection is automatically activated. Okay, so now let's create a recipient for Holiday Goods Company. And Holiday Goods told me that they don't use Databricks. They just want to use Power BI to analyze and visualize this data. So I don't have any sharing identifier to input here, but I'll add a comment here as well. And for this recipient, I'm shown an activation link, which I can send to Holiday Goods so that they can download a file containing their unique token credentials and use Power BI or their Delta sharing connection of choice to consume the data. So here on the details page for this non-Databricks recipient, notice that the authentication type is instead token, and the status is pending because Holiday Goods Company hasn't downloaded their credentials yet. So I can copy this activation link and send it an email over to James at Holiday Goods. And let's quickly just see what hypothetically it looks like if James had clicked on this link that I sent him. The activation link will bring the recipient to a page where they can download a file containing their token credentials and use it to consume the data via any Delta sharing client. Now, switching back to Rollo's gift shop, the workspace here, the status you can see is activated. Okay, so now I'll create a share here called online sales, and I'll add a comment as well. This share is going to contain online sales transactions for Rollo's gift shop. And let's add the two tables to the share. I can use these two filters at the top to quickly find the data sets. Okay, so let's add all of the tables. And then let's add the two recipients so that they can access the share. Okay, awesome. So you can see that within minutes, I was able to share this data with both suppliers. And everything I've done so far could have been done through a SQL query editor or notebooks as well. So let's briefly step through what that looks like. Here, I can run a SQL command to create a Databricks consumer using their sharing identifier and add a comment. I can see their authentication type here as Databricks. I can create a non-Databricks consumer as well, which will show me their activation link that I can send to them. I can create a data share and add a comment. I can add tables to the online sales share. I can view the tables within a share. I can see the two tables here. I can grant access to the share to both of the consumers, whether or not they are a Databricks customer. So the SQL command is the same for both Wedding Trinkets Company and Holiday Goods Company. I can view the details on a consumer by describing recipient. Here I can see Wedding Trinkets Company is on Databricks and Holiday Goods Company is a token-based sharing recipient. And so, yeah, everything is very simple. We can support both SQL and a nice new UI. So let's switch over to what the experience looks like from Wedding Trinkets Company's perspective. So now I am a data consumer, Wedding Trinkets Company, and I'm using Databricks on Azure. In the Data Explorer, in the Delta sharing section on the Shared With Me page, I can see a list of providers who have shared data assets with me. And on the top right is where I can find that unique sharing identifier, which I can send over to the providers. This was what was copied over to Rollo's gift shop earlier to initialize the sharing connection. Here in the list of providers is Rollo's gift shop, which automatically showed up a few minutes ago after they used my sharing identifier to start the connection and share data with me. And I can see the online sales share here, and I can see details like which cloud and which region the provider came from. Great, so let's create a catalog from this share. I'll name this catalog Rollo's gift shop, and I'll add a comment here as well. Okay, now that I've created a catalog from the share, the data can be accessed from the data tab, and it shows up just like the rest of the data from within my company. So the nice thing is that Delta sharing on Databricks is tightly integrated with Unity Catalog. And this gives Databricks customers a unified experience for managing and working with data from both within the company and with data shared with me from another organization as well. So I can click into the data and I can see the two tables that are shared with me, and I can see the schema of that table that's been shared with me. I can also grant permissions on the data to data engineers within my company so that they can query the shared data as well. So awesome, like everything that I've done here on the UI as a data consumer, I could do with a SQL API as well. So let's quickly take a look at the notebooks. I can get my unique sharing identifier by running a select current metastore command. And once the provider has set up a sharing connection with me, I can show providers. I can see my list of providers. I can view a specific provider, which shows me information about this provider. I can view the data that they have shared with me. Like I can see this online sales share. I can create a catalog from this share, create catalog using share. And the most important thing is I can explore and query the data as I normally would on Databricks. So like any other catalog database table, I can select star from this shared data. I can see all of the consumer data that's shared with me. And I can see all the country data that's shared with me as well. I can run data analysis on the data. Like I can find out what are the top 20 countries by total revenue. So I can see here that my wedding trinkets that I sell through Rolo's gift shop are popular in this region here. And I can find the top 10 most popular items overall. So I can see that this, I can see that white hanging heart tea light holder and this 3-tier cake stand are my top 2 items that I sell on Rolo's gift shop. So I can make sure that these items are always stocked so that I can maximize my profit. And I can also see the most popular item by country here as well. So I can see that white hanging heart tea light holder is very popular in the UK. I can see that carriage is popular in Ireland. So I can really get some good business value out of this data that's been shared with me. All right, so you may have heard earlier in today's keynote that, and I'm excited to share that we are going to make Delta sharing generally available in the next few weeks. And this includes both the token-based sharing and the Databricks to Databricks sharing, which you just saw in the demo, along with a UI for both the provider and the consumers. And also included in this GA is the ability to share incremental changes or change data feed data. So in addition to just sharing a table, a provider can choose to include the change data feed data along with it so that consumers can read just the new or incremental changes without having to query the entire table data every time. And this could help reduce the egress costs for the data provider as well. We're continuing to work on a bunch of exciting features that we will launch post-GA, such as the ability to view shares with fine-grained data filters, the ability to share data streams and allow consumers to query and process the data continuously and with low latency. And we're adding support for other types of data assets as well, such as ML models and notebooks, which will give even more ways for organizations to share and collaborate on data. So with Delta sharing, we built a data sharing platform that's open yet secure and avoids data movement and vendor lock-in. But this is just the beginning, and the way that we built Delta sharing unlocks the potential for us to build even better sharing and collaboration products, one of which I'll invite Jay to talk about next.
Awesome. Thank you, Celia. So building on what Celia mentioned here, the next topic we want to talk about around sharing is around limited asset sharing. How can we help customers within Databricks and outside really discover more assets and share them within our ecosystem? So a quick show of hands here. How many people are responsible for bringing in third-party vendor data into their platforms? OK, so a good amount of you. So talking to customers over the last few months, we've seen a lot of frustration around this, and kind of outlining some of the key points along this journey. Data discovery sometimes can be hard. A lot of this may be solved for, but finding different vendors, reviewing pricing, all of that, the legal. Then getting access to data. Now that I found the right data, how do I get the database administrator to any type of InfoSec reviews, understanding what protocols they're sharing this data with me? Now I have access to the data. Now I have to wrangle it. How do I evaluate this data? If it's highly normalized or if it's very bespoke or different to me, structure it, validate it, making sure it's the right type of data I need. And then I get to finally the good part, which is doing some of the analysis on the data, really understanding enriching that data, finding models that work with that data, and really driving insights. And this entire process has left a lot of consumers frustrated. And the problem with most data marketplaces are they tend to be restrictive and they're not really providing the full picture. A lot of data marketplaces provide data tables and files, a few out-of-date sample queries, but they tend to be pretty restrictive. You can only really use that data within that data marketplace platform in and of itself. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of data consumers really want the context behind that data to really help make their decision and accelerate the value that they can get from that data. Customers really want ways to do better quality evaluation on the data, making sure that the data the model of the data is good and it's in good shape, understanding the insights behind that data, and then eventually driving the analytics that data can help form. And with those challenges in mind, As Matei mentioned earlier in the keynote, we're introducing Databricks Marketplace, an open exchange to really help you share and monetize all of your data assets, including data sets, notebooks, dashboards, and ML models powered by Delta Sharing. We really want to make this a one-stop shop to really help all of our customers share their data sets, plus all of those other assets alongside that and their analytics to really help power and accelerate the time to insights for our customers, really easing that entire journey from discovery all the way to insights. So from a consumer perspective, the real goal here at talking to customers is how can we drive insights quicker? First and foremost, foundationally, by providing open and seamless access to data products. As Celia showed, it's pretty simple and quick to get access vis-a-vis Delta Sharing. And the best part about that is it's open too, meaning if you want to access that data outside of Databricks as a consumer, you're not restricted to using the data on our platform, but you can go access it from your compute of choice across clouds and across regions. Second from that is now how can we provide a more frictionless evaluation process? A lot of that exploratory data analysis, understanding the model, the shape of the data and the quality, how can we help you facilitate that quicker through notebooks, solutions accelerators, and other assets to really help ease that journey? And then all of that really parlaying into accelerated insights. Now that you've understand the data is good, you've had access to it quickly, how can you drive more insights, whether that's through dashboards and notebooks and other artifacts that can be easily shared within our marketplace. On the provider side, the real goal here is to help customers and our partners accelerate their growth within and outside of Databricks. And that's really done through three levers: acquisition, helping them acquire new customers; expansion, helping them drive new business within different functional groups of current customers, as an example, data science groups that may not be familiar with their products; and then retention. How can we provide a best-in-class experience by providing all of these additional assets in conjunction with the data set to really drive a better customer experience overall? And with Databricks, we can really help you monetize all of those data assets. With Delta Share, it's essentially one share to anywhere now. You don't need to be on every single platform, or if customers are not using Databricks, you can still share data with them easily. And last and certainly not least, is Databricks' platform is growing. As we see here, there's a lot of people, 8,000 plus and growing customer base, which really gives our partners a lot of visibility into a broad-based ecosystem. And don't just take my word for it. We've talked to a lot of data providers over the last few months while building this out, and a few quotes from a few of them. SafeGraph, a geospatial provider, sees analytics on top of the data as the future for marketplaces. LexisNexis, a big data analytics provider within the legal and IP space, sees the expanded reach of our marketplace, really helping them reach new personas and benefiting different use cases. And then Factious, an alternative data provider, really sees the simplifying access through Delta Sharing as a really powerful mechanism to drive growth. And so with that, let's jump into a quick demo of our marketplace to really highlight its value and show you kind of what we're building here. So as mentioned, this is a one-stop shop for all of your data assets. What I like to go through today is briefly highlight some of the key differentiator and functionality within our marketplace. So the page I'm landed on here is our home page or our catalog page. Up front, we have a few featured data providers, and each of the tiles underneath that represents a data product. And what a data product is essentially is a collection of data assets, from the data sets themselves to notebooks, dashboards, and even models as well. Customers have an easy experience of searching, browsing, and exploring all of these data products. You can even filter by different data types, data sets, dashboards, and models as well. So let's say in this example, I am a data analyst, and I'm looking to see in a post-lockdown world, how has retail changed? Are more people going to stores to buy things? And if so, what is that transaction looking like, and what are they purchasing in general? So let's say I wanted to start by looking for geospatial data to see, well, are people really going to stores to buy more data? So searching geospatial, I see SafeGraph has a really interesting data set on places and point of interest data. From this product description page now, I can quickly read about the data set itself, an overview and some use cases, as well as a little bit about the provider. But where I really can accelerate my understanding of the data set is the sample notebooks that are provided to me. Now I have a very good understanding of how to set this data set up, load it, and also some contextual analysis behind that data. What are some common words used within this data set in this location? How can I look at other ways of exploring this data where previously it may have taken me 2-3 days, maybe a week max, to kind of get through all of these types of learnings on the data set to really get my analysis complete and understand the quality of that data. Here, within minutes now, I have access to reading about this and understanding it and providing a much more content and insight behind that. So this data set seems pretty interesting around point of interest data and maybe foot traffic to see how in a post-lockdown world that's changed. But I also want to learn a little bit more about purchase behavior on the retail side. So looking here, I see that Yipit data has a retail category insights data set. So from this data set, similar to the one we saw with SafeGraph, I can look at a sample notebook, I can learn a little bit about the data set, which provides a lot of context and analysis. But now I notice that SafeGraph also has this other button up here to view live data. By clicking this, now SafeGraph has presented a hosted dashboard for me. So maybe as a non-technical user or a user that wants something much more visual, I now have even more context to help me understand the value of this data set. And I could even potentially use this in certain use cases as maybe something I would want to show my senior level stakeholders in terms of the different positioning of different sales data as seen here. So this data set looks pretty interesting. And I think it's something that I would be interested in terms of the analysis I want to do. From there, I can click Get Data. I can mount this catalog into my Databricks workspace. I now can click on a few of the assets that I want in addition to the data set. This then triggers a lead for our data partners so that they can reach out and learn a little bit more about the use case. And I can immediately now open up this notebook and begin working in this data. On the back end, a sample of that data is shared vis-a-vis Delta sharing. I have access to this notebook. I spin up some compute. Now I can immediately begin my analysis. So from discovery all the way to analytics and analysis, I've done that within less than 2 minutes here. Our data marketplace really wants to help accelerate that time to value for our customers and provide extra reach for our partners as well. And with that, I will let me cover one other component of this that I think is equally as important. We touched upon the data assets, but another key part is the openness. I can simply, within our marketplace, help our customers and consumers download a credential file. With that credential file, they can easily access that data outside of the Databricks ecosystem. In this example here, you can see someone's accessing this Yipit data vis-a-vis Power BI, easily loading their token credential, and now immediately beginning to access this data outside. So this is truly the first ever open marketplace that allows you to access more than just data sets and all of the data assets around that. So with that, I will turn it over to Itai to discuss secure sharing. Oh, one other slide. Sorry, if you are interested in what you've seen here and it seems interesting to you, please join our marketplace as a partner. Feel free to reach out to myself, your account representative, and or come to our webpage. We're looking to help any businesses that are thinking about monetizing any of their data assets or that currently do, join our marketplace, and would love to talk to you about it in more detail. And with that, I'll turn it over to Itai to discuss clean rooms and privacy sharing. Itai?
Thank you, Jay. So we've seen how it's easy to share a table or partition. We've seen how it's easy to put data out there in the marketplace. But what do I do when I have really private data and I need to share it with other people securely? When they cannot really access my data, they can just query it and get de-identified data, anonymized data. There are many compelling events that requires us to do it. There's more and more regulatory, CCPA, GDPR. More and more companies would like to remain secured with their data. They do not want to share and expose their data all over the place. And it's hard doing so. It's not a new solution. There are clean rooms that are existing and done in many different ways all over. But when collaborator A can share its own securely identified data, with collaborator B, allowing for queries to run, processing the data, and showing anonymized aggregated data as an output. But these are hard. It's really hard because it's unscalable. Most of these clean rooms are providing one-to-one solution or requires a third-party aggregator to be part of it. They will have to process the data for you. They will have to extract it and share it back to you. Others are just restricted to SQL. And although SQL is a really good language, it doesn't help us a lot when we need to do data engineering, data science, or other solutions. And the last one, replication, has to come across everywhere. Whenever the clean room solution I use, I'll have to export my data, store it there, allow access, and then be able to log into another tool, run different queries, get the data anonymized, sometimes put it back, download it in a different format, and then get it back to my work. And everything takes time and maintenance, and it's hard. As Matei presented earlier today, Databricks Cleanroom is here to help you with any compute at any scale, allowing collaborators in larger magnitude be able to share the data on trusted compute, and mutually approved jobs will process the data and allow anonymized data sets to be read by the other collaborators. Arbitrary compute will allow you to run it on large clusters of CPU or GPUs as you need, with multiple languages such as SQL, R, Python, and Scala. There is no data replication needed. The data in your lakehouse is the data that you can trustedly share on the Databricks compute, knowing that your data remain confidential. There is no access to the raw data, while still allowing for different queries that you approved to run and show the results to the requestor. And also guided experience. Same with the data products that we have on the marketplace. You will be able to deliver to them a set of notebooks, dashboards, and jobs that will allow them to very easily query the data and get the output anonymized to continue and process it and get insights and business value in their own workspace. And how does it work? Collaborator A will be the publisher, this example, and they will share their private data securely with the trusted compute in Databricks. They can also create a simple anonymized data and share directly with data sharing with other collaborators, allowing them to develop and test the different assets that they got or would like to run. Collaborator B will do very similar. They will share their private data with Databricks, and they can also share sample data of their data if they want to with other collaborators with their own assets. Collaborator will then submit a request to run a predefined job that's approved by other collaborators on Databricks compute. Databricks compute is the only one that have access to the raw data. The process will run, execute, and store the result set, anonymized result set, as agreed upon both parties, or all parties, and store it back on the same storage for the collaborator who requested it, allowing them to further query it, analyze it, and using all their workspaces with the other data sets that they have that they don't have to expose to be able to understand it and get other more business insights. A good example is a lift analytics done by ad and media industries, where you'll be able to see the impressions of your advertisement on many different providers, publishers, and be able to understand who is your target audience, what are the demographics, what will be the times and others that you'll use for it. This will provide a faster insights that helps the business just deliver more insights and more value from the data. Improving the tools, easy onboarding, easy way to query the data in many different languages such as SQL, R, or Python, and will allow them to see the entire picture. We're looking into a more than just standard Cleanroom collaboration, where third party will be able to come into the Cleanroom and add their data or their tools into the Cleanroom. A good example is Axiom. Axiom is an identity management provider, and they allow to join different data sets based on identity resolution, allowing the business not only to see who is the users that view the impression and bought it, but also which part of household is it, and how did they reach to the data, what would be the target, and how to consume it. The identity management solution is done using multi-source, ethically sourced, and evidence-based. And by leveraging it on the Databricks Cleanroom, they will be able to allow the different queries to run and find the true identity behind the purchase process or others, and by that allowing them to understand the complete story. We've seen how we solve these 4 different problems. Hard to maintain data sharing with a lot of ETL and processes. It's too restrictive with trying to bring the data to many different vendor lock-in solutions and manage them. Easy discovery and also easy use with data products that allows you to share data assets with your data. So it's very easy to your consumers to start and get insights and value from the data. But also the ability to share private data and be able to query it and understand your business much better. And as for the roadmap, what else do we plan? Data sharing will be expanded to support views on Databricks, where you will also be able to add compute on the consumer side to filter the data, mask it, or many different functionality. You'll also be able to stream the data and process it as your provider releases it to you. So really access live data in real time. and also support different arbitrary file sharing. So not only data or semi-structured, but also images, pictures, PDF, and so on. The data marketplace that we just announced will allow for open discovery. Anyone outside of Databricks will be able to find all these data sets, use them in their own compute, and access the data outside of Databricks. They will provide quick start assets that will allow them very easily to see the data quality or the use cases and the usage of the data. And will also allow for a private exchange where a company will be able to manage and restrict access to the marketplace. By that, allowing only chosen, agreed upon customers to look and discover new data sets or even consume existing data sets from them. And for Data Cleanroom, as you've seen, we'll support SQL, Python, and ML. We'll have a code approval process that will enable all the collaborators, as many as needed or would like to team up and join, to support it. And will run on Databricks Trusted Compute. So you know that your data was never exposed to anyone outside of your company, but the business insight and your monetization can run. If you have any questions, we're happy to have you in our booth downstairs. Just come and meet us there, and happy to answer all of your questions or others. Thank you.